What's up, you guys? It's your girl Taylor, and I am about to start my brand new job that I will be doing for 2 years in my 2 gap years before I hopefully go on to medical school. So today I just wanted to talk about why I decided to take 2 gap years. If you're thinking about taking gap years, you're not quite sure if you should or if you should just go straight through to medical school or any other kind of graduate program, I hope that you find this video helpful. Alright, so these are the 5 reasons that I decided to take 2 gap years. My first reason, and honestly my biggest reason, is to use this time to beef up my medical school application and get more experience. So if you don't know, I went to undergrad at Cornell, which is in Ithaca, New York. We didn't have a lot of clinical opportunities. We only had one hospital in our town in which all of the pre-meds at Cornell were kind of fighting for volunteer opportunities in order to get some clinical experience. So at this point, I honestly don't have a lot of experience working directly with patients, which is something that I really wanted not only to be able to put on my medical school application, but also just to make sure that this is 100% a field that I want to go into and I want to spend the rest of my life in. So in my 2 gap years, I will be a psychiatric clinical research assistant, and I am so excited to be able to have a job in the specialty that I'm really interested in pursuing. And honestly, the job asked for a 2-year commitment, so that is why I decided to take 2 gap years. I was originally only going to take 1, but then I decided it would make more sense for me to have a job that I really loved and I was really passionate about, and do that for 2 years instead of just doing 1 year, having a job that wasn't as exciting or wasn't exactly what I wanted to spend a year doing, and then going to medical school early. Medical school isn't going anywhere, and going to medical school 1 year later than I originally planned isn't going to be like a huge setback in my life or anything strange, so I decided that the 2 years are worth it to pursue this position. My next 2 reasons kind of go hand in hand, and they involve the medical school application cycle. So my second reason for taking gap years is that the money that I make during these gap years, I can use to apply to medical school. You know, the medical school application process is not a cheap process. It can easily cost thousands of dollars. And in undergrad, I didn't have a job, so I honestly didn't know how I would be paying for this whole process. So I think just being able to make money and being able to put aside part of my paycheck every year and say this is what is going to my medical school applications just brings me a sense of ease. And then similarly, just as this process is very expensive, it is also very time consuming. You know, you have to write so many essays, you have to take time off to interview, and doing all of that while in my senior year and having to juggle, you know, classes and extracurriculars and making sure that I'm keeping my grades up just seemed like a lot, and it seemed like it was going to add a lot of stress. And I know that I will now be doing this process while working full time, so it may not seem that there was really any benefit in doing this process during my gap years versus doing it during school. But honestly, just knowing that I can take time off at my job and be able to go and do interviews instead of having to contact professors and potentially miss tests or assignment deadlines, and knowing that after my interviews I would have to come back and make up all of the work that I missed during those interviews, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of stress. So honestly, I think that doing this process during my gap years is just going to be better for me and my mental health and sanity. My fourth reason is another financial reason, and you know, taking gap years and working during this time will allow me to save money for when I am in medical school and I don't have a job. By saving as much money as I can during these next 2 years, I'm really hoping that this will allow me to take out less money in loans and ultimately be less in debt, because I'm hoping that I can use the money I'm saving now to go towards things like groceries and rent and fun activities when I'm actually a medical student, and so I don't have to take out that extra money in my student loans. And then my final reason for wanting to take gap years is honestly, I just need a break from school. You know, being a student for the past like 16 years is very crazy to think about, and having had no breaks in my education for the past 16 years, is very wild. You know, school is a very stressful environment. It's a stressful process. There's so much pressure on you to succeed. And I just needed to step away from all that. And a lot of people have told me they worry that with these gap years, then when the time comes to go back to school, I won't want to go back. And I really don't think that's the case. I am so excited for medical school. Like, I'm constantly watching medical school vlogs. I'm constantly like researching the process. I am really so excited to start my journey in that part of my education. But for now, it makes so much more sense for me to be able to take that break and rest. And like, I will be in an academic environment with my job, and I will have to learn so many new things for my job that it's not like I'm completely leaving the world of academics. I just think that in my job, I will have less pressure surrounding me. And that is ultimately very exciting because I know medical school is going to be a very draining process, and there's a lot of burnout when it comes to medical school. So ultimately, I think that this was the best option for me. All right, so those are all of my reasons why I decided to take some gap years. I am hoping to spend the next 2 years documenting this process. I'm documenting my life as a research assistant and all of the cool things that I get to learn and do in that job. So if you want to learn more about that, to learn more about me before I head off to medical school, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.